Welcome to the Universal Drummer. I'm Wade, and today we're just going to continue exploring the topic that is feathering the bass drum. If you're new to the channel, I've posted a handful of guided practices as well as sort of a collection of my thoughts on the subject, why it's important, a little bit of the history, why it's maybe important to those of you who don't study jazz or aren't even interested in jazz. And today I wanted to just consolidate some of that information and just list out a handful of the exercises that we've covered for those of you who would rather take this topic and go and hit the practice room on your own, that maybe want to work at a different pacing than the rhythm that I've been setting through the practices. So bass drum feathering exercises, or practicing playing very quietly with the bass drum. I think that probably the best way that you're going to see improvement with this is to just feather a lot and get your body used to doing that. Tell your brain that this is a skill that you want to get better at so that it will build those synapses. And by the way, I chose this topic to do guided practices on because it's something that I'm awful at. You can look at the previous videos if you're new here. I'm not an expert jazz player. I come from the rock and roll and the psychedelic rock world. This is just a way I'm holding myself accountable to practicing. Anyways, run that, but then start thinking about some different things, such as what part of your foot you're using. Are you using your ankle to move the bass drum? Are you using your toes to move the bass drum? Are you playing heel up and trying to play really quietly? All of those are fine. I think that probably most jazz players are playing with their toes, but if you're from my world where a lot of your bass drum hits are propelled by your ankle, you're going to benefit by learning how to play more quietly with your ankle. You're going to benefit by learning how to play more quietly heel up, because that just extends your usable range of being able to use those techniques. So have intent. Know which of those you're trying to practice and why you're trying to practice it. That way you're actually getting improvement and you're not just sitting there tapping your bass drum pedal while you're thinking Arby's. The next thing that you can be thinking about is what you're doing with your beater. Are you burying it each stroke and really digging in that way? Are you playing off the head? It's hard to do those back to back. Are you doing that thing that Quincy Davis does where he kind of like rests it? Any number of things. You can play around with pressure. You can kind of try and dribble. I don't even know if you can catch that, but like purposefully create dribble. What's your intent there? What are you trying to practice there? Are you trying to practice, for example, I just identified that switching from dead stroke to playing off the head, dead stroke meaning playing into the head, that is something that I struggle with, or at least just did. So I could practice off the head, bury, the head, bury, off the head, bury, off the head, bury, or off the head, off the head, off the head, off the head, bury, 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 bury. But any combination of those, or focusing on any of those. And again, within that, you also can bury with the heel up. You can bury with the heel down. You can bury with the toes. You can do all of these techniques by compounding them on top of the other techniques. And I don't mean to give y'all decision paralysis either. I wouldn't just aimlessly practice these things. Identify the ones that you're worst at and maybe work on those. Or identify the one that you perhaps see the most benefit coming from actually integrating it into your playing and practice that one. Again, there's limited amount of time. You know, if you're building an RPG character, you can't max out all your stats. You got to specialize. It's kind of what economics is about, is specializing. So specialize. Choose the things that you are specifically going to pull that will suit your playing. Anyways, the next thing that you could work on are accents, where you're feathering very quietly and then you have some loud hits mixed in there, because that is something that happens a lot. Jazz players drop bombs. It's when you're feathering. So you could practice that. And I believe it was Greg Hutchinson during one of his live things on Instagram, I may be wrong about that said a lot of, and himself included, if they're feathering and they do a loud hit, they will do like a rest right after. They don't have to do a hit right after. You can kind of like loud, quiet, 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 loud, rest, quiet, quiet, loud, rest, quiet, quiet. I may be wrong, but work on the accents. And you could do accenting the first hit. You could do accenting every other hit. So you could be like down, rest. And I know I'm awful at this. Down. or every other one, down, rest, down, rest, down, rest, down, rest. And within that, there's so many things you can work on, because again, you can be experimenting with what you're doing with the beater. You can experiment with which part of your toes you're using or your ankle you're using. And also within that, there is something else to be thinking about, which is a hand technique move, which is the idea of downstrokes, which is when you start high and low, or upstrokes, which is where you start low and high. And within that, you can be looking into the upstrokes and downstrokes of your bass drum playing to prepare yourself, you know, starting high, ending low, or starting low, ending high. I posted a video about that. I discussed that in the sort of like feathering discussion video that I posted. That'll be in the description below. But just be aware of that, and you can work on that while you're doing your accents. In fact, that could be the intent behind you working on your accents. So you see how intent is very important here, not just aimlessly practicing exercises. Within the topic of accents, you could also practice different dynamic ranges. You could do crescendos and decrescendos. So one of the things that I like to do is do a crescendo over 4 notes. So low, medium, higher, high. And then you've got to get it down to a next low, medium, higher, high, low, medium, higher, high, low, medium, higher. Ooh, that was bad. High. Or you could do the opposite. High, medium, lower, low. And my spring tension is tight because I've been playing loud music, but high, medium, lower, low, high, medium, lower, low. Or you could do a full crescendo, decrescendo, low, medium, higher, high, high, medium, lower, low. That sort of thing. So a lot that you can do there. And again, within that, you can also decide whether or not you're using your toes to do the quiet hits and your ankle to do the louder hits, or it's all ankle control, or you're trying to see how loudly you can play with your toes in order to increase the ceiling that you're able to play with your toes. Any number of different kind of things, including whether or not you're burying the beater, or how much you're burying the beater, so on and so forth. And you can be working that at all sorts of different tempos. So those are all different, what I consider like technique building things. The next step is taking that feathering and getting it synced up with the other limbs, whether it's playing quarters. I'm gonna play the bass drum louder. Whether it's playing both of these at the same time, rather than, you know, you wanna be locked in. Not, and obviously that is an exaggeration, but even being able to lock those in is super important. And the same with being able to play with your feet, where I am, and I don't know if you'll be able to catch all this, but you know, getting your hi-hat going. If you're not able to synchronize your hi-hat, I mean, if you can't do just quarter notes, and I know I'm not feathering here, but if you can't just do quarter notes, and you're wondering why your 4-way coordination isn't lining up, or even your rock beats sound sloppy and messy, and you can't just do your limbs and have them hit at the same time, maybe something to look into. It might even up your playing a lot. And so we can really focus on that unison. Within that, we can also do different volume leveling. So one thing that I see a lot of sort of newer jazz players, newer than me at least, is that they have kind of their ratio of ride cymbal to kick wrong, where they're like kind of playing the cymbal quietly because they don't quite know how to do the swing beat. And they're stomping instead of feathering. Which like, I mean, a lot of those early like Savoy Ballroom era swing players were absolutely thwopping the kick drum. But if you want to play like what is sort of the like bebop, well, I guess like pre whoever it was, Max Roach and Kenny Washington, even though they say that they were actually feathering the bass drum. But anyways, sort of that era a little bit before that where everybody was feathering. If you want to do that and sound like you're playing jazz, you need to be able to do that quietly and that loud. So, it's like, 10% bass drum to the rest cymbal. You want to be able to get that ratio right, where you are at least able to feather. A lot of guys say that it should be felt, not heard. I don't think I've quite gotten there yet. Maybe I won't be able to hear this when I edit the video. And then of course add the hi-hat in, but play around with different dynamic volumes. If you're not just trying to learn jazz, you could just like do both quietly and then slowly start playing around with the dynamics of your cymbal. Or I'm gonna do this on the rim so we can see both. And start learning how to play your four limbs, not just at different times, but at different volumes, at different dynamic levels, as though you're playing with the faders on a mixer. Very, very fast and efficient way to make your playing immediately sound more mature. You'll see, once you start doing it, you'll start noticing how important of a variable that is to sounding mature. As far as timing goes too, to back it up to just the bass drum beater, is setting a click, and my metronome is not here right now, setting a metronome, and just practicing playing to the metronome, dead on to the metronome, and then work on playing ahead of the metronome, or after the metronome, and switch between those. That is a big exercise that I really enjoy doing. I love playing around either side of the click because I feel like it has really developed me over time. Learn how to hear the click much better, almost like you're a photographer pulling focus. You zoom out, you zoom in, you zoom out, you zoom in, you zoom out, and you just do it a little bit less each time until you're deadly focused. And as a player, it's really good to know how to rush a little bit or how to drag a little bit, but still stay on time in the big picture. Really good thing to practice. So in the future, I'm going to be being a little bit less descriptive of the exercises that we're doing if they were covered in this video, so that I can practice a little bit rather than having to talk so much while we're playing, because I believe that's to all of our benefit. You all should be focusing on your playing, not my voice, and I should be focusing on playing and not having to talk. So I think we'll all benefit from that a little bit. It will also make editing easier for me. I'll be able to get more videos out. That being said, definitely save this video and go back and reference it if you're confused. I'm going to add chapters at the bottom of this video and make it easy for us to navigate. Please comment below if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you need elaboration on things, you have suggested exercises that we should give a shot. I'm trying to learn this stuff too, and it's directly to my benefit to do my best to explain these things to people, and nothing makes you understand how to teach something better than realizing that you were explaining it in a way that wasn't getting through to people. And I really don't want to skimp on this right foot, or the left foot for that matter. I found a quote online from Buddy Rich that was saying, "Put your hands in your pockets and play with your feet. You can't swing a band without those." So it's clearly very important. With that being said, happy practicing. I'll post another guided video very soon, and you all have a wonderful rest of your day.